Alright, I'm here going to show you how to adjust the pneumatic diesel power source Turbonator VGT turbine housing. So here's what we do. There's a few steps. Step one, what you're going to do is simply loosen the nuts here, because we're going to remove this bracket. So step one, you're going to remove the bracket. You can use the box or the open end. If you can have a thin wrench, you can get it in there. So we're going to remove this bracket, very first thing. All right, for step two, very important step, you're going to tighten the nuts back up after you remove the bracket. And you don't need to do it super tight, but you definitely need them snug. Tight enough that they're going to tighten this head back on. All right, the next step is the spool up adjustment. Now it should come preset so that it should drive really nice, spool up really nice. However, you can fine tune it. If you're not getting the spool up you want out of it or want to fine tune it, this is the way you do it. You change the length of this rod. You do this by these two nuts here. They're jam nutted, they're a jam nut. They're tightened together so you can adjust the rod. The very first thing you're gonna do is you're going to take a Sharpie and or white out or something and put a little mark on the top of that shaft so you can see, you're right there, so you can see how much you're turning it, because you have to count the turns. Under no circumstance adjust more than 1.5 turns in either direction. And we're always going to start the adjustment counterclockwise. What you're going to do, and you're only going to do a half turn adjustment at a time, and then you can fine tune it beyond there, but you're simply going to loosen the rod a half turn and count that. So there, I'm a half turn. So now I would take the truck for a spin and see if the spool up has become better or worse. If the spool up got worse by doing that, then I'm going to go back the other way. If the spool up became a little better, I'm going to go counterclockwise. So if I'm looking down at this direction, counterclockwise, okay? Down at the head of it. So I go another half a turn. And there's my mark again. So now I'm a full turn into it, and I'm going to take the truck for a spin. If the truck spool up improves, I'm going to keep going. Now, if the truck spool up gets better as I turn and then suddenly gets worse, I know I've found my sweet spot. I'm going to go back and forth until I hit the sweet spot there, and then I'm done adjusting that. That's that step for adjusting the spool up. And it is very touchy in the very first spool up zone, which is what we're adjusting here. So once you've adjusted it and found your sweet spot on the spool up, we're going to move to the next step. That's all you'll need to do there. The next step is to adjust the mid-range. So what I'm going to do to adjust the mid-range is I'm going to take a wrench, and I either have to have a thin wrench or you're going to have to grind a wrench thin to do this. But I'm going to put on the bottom nut here. Now be careful that you do not, I'm going to unjam the nuts together. So I'm going to separate the nuts from each other. You want to make sure you don't turn the shaft when you do that. So now I've loosened the nuts so they can spin freely of each other. And I'm worried about the bottom nut here. So what I'm going to do, this spring will have play. So the mark is still there. So I know I have done it correctly because I've loosened the nuts and I have not moved the shaft. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to take and I'm going to see how the spring can wiggle. It's crucial it does not touch the spring when I'm done. So I'm going to tighten this nut down, just carefully tighten the nut down until I have no movement, and I basically want to just touch it. I don't want to tighten it where it compresses the spring at all, just to where the nut turns off me, it stops turning barely by me touching it. When I hit that point, then I'm going to back off a solid turn. I'm going to count the number of sides on this and count 6 of those, so I get one turn back off the nut. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When I'm back off one turn, that's perfect, and that's where you want to set it. I'm simply going to tighten the nuts together, and then you'll be done. So I'm going to put the thin nut on the bottom, this wrench on the top, jam the nuts together, and I'm finished with that adjustment. So I tighten, and again, being careful that you do not turn the shaft length or the shaft position. Now that you've adjusted the 2 points of adjustment, which are the spool up adjustment, which is the rod length, and the nuts, which adjust the mid-range, you're ready to put the cover back on. To do this, you're going to have to loosen these 2 nuts again. And I'm going to take them off about a turn and a half. Just get it loose enough that that your cover can fit in comfortably. You're going to slide the cover in. Slide the cover back on and tighten the nuts back, and you're done. And then at this point, and again, you don't want it, you want them snug, but you don't need them super tight. And that is the adjustment to the pneumatic adjustment to the Turbonator VGT. Get that tight, and that's it.